episode of EastTO Happy Hour Podcast. I'm Shane. This is Jenny. Today we have Michael Summerfield, who is founding and running Foreverfest for the second year in a row.
Yeah.
And we're super happy to have you, man. Welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Great to have you. So we were just chatting before the mics turned on just about some of the logistics you guys have been going through. Maybe let's talk about how Foreverfest came to be, version 1, and then what's you kind of turned it into this year.
Yeah, sure. So a buddy of mine named James Burton, the Percy Ellis is a developer. They bought my house, and so we had a relationship. And they actually bought a piece of land beside Forever Maple Leaf Park, and they wanted to do something for the community. So they asked me if I had any ideas, and I thought, I'm not doing anything. I'm just working on my own stuff. So this will be super easy. It'll be fun. Whatever. Yeah. So it turned out to be the exact opposite of that. It turned out to be the hardest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
Of something of this nature anyways, which I've never done a festival before, but of a time-sensitive event that takes place over a particular period of time. So I did some research into the park, and it turns out it was named after the song The Forever Maple Leaf, which was almost our national anthem. It was written by this guy named Alexander Murr in 1867. So the whole Canadiana theme became pretty clear. And obviously with Percy and wanting to do something for the locals, and the whole local thing became pretty apparent. And then Joel Carrere, who owns Dynalone Records, their office is right around the corner. So the whole music thing, and obviously my background in hospitality, then it all seemed to make a lot of sense. And then getting the local businesses involved to create this vendor village. And of course, nobody could do it. Nobody could do it. Nobody had any money. Nobody had any staff.
Yeah.
This was, pre-current, post, whatever, COVID.
Yeah,
right?
It was middle to end COVID. Yeah.
So I spent literally, at least 100 hours phoning people. No, they can't do it. So I'm and I tried to structure it in a way where if I was a restaurateur and you'd approach me, it would work based on gift certificates, and that's how you would pay. Anyways, none of it worked. No staff, no money, no nothing. So at the last minute, I got food trucks to come in. This gentleman who sort of brokers out food trucks, so we got the food trucks in. And this was all at the last minute. I mean, we didn't even get our approvals till 11 days before the event.
Oh, wow.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was crazy. And then
that is crazy.
And then, I was really good friends with Paula from Muskoka, so they decided to set up something. And then Dave from Eastbound, who's always great to do that sort of stuff. And then I just ended up getting some of the store stack bins, what's the word I'm looking for here? The containers.
Okay, yeah.
To do the bars in.
Yeah.
And then I my old manager, who now works for Live Nation and runs History, he hooked me up with Jack Ross at APA. So Jack hooked me up with Mike Graham. Then we started talking talent, and now I'm negotiating with talent, and I don't know.
You're like, I just wanted to have a fun festival.
Yeah, I just wanted to drink beer and eat some food.
Yeah. So to kind of make a long story short, we ended up doing a lot of the booze, and somehow we put together the acts, and then I thought it would make a lot of sense to do the live to air, so the remotes.
Yeah.
So we did deals with Q107, Indie 88, and Boom 97.3. So we started advertising a week before the event, and then I got some MC like Jay, Mad Dog, Michaels,
that was awesome. Yeah,
and Sarah Bartok, and who am I forgetting? I don't want to get in trouble here.
If you forget, we'll just have Asan do the edit. It's
it'll be Siri saying, and Bob Ross. Yeah,
it worked, but it was just crazy. So, vendors didn't show, our stage manager didn't show, so I'm dealing with talent and riders, and I'm
I only want the brown M&Ms kind of thing.
They were pretty good though, but they showed up and they're like, what's going on? And I'm like, I don't know. We just sort of went with it, and that was, the good thing is, I hated it personally because it was badness.
Yeah.
But you guys know, you were there. Everybody seemed to love it that came. We had about 4,000 people over the weekend.
We were there the whole time, the whole weekend. And I will say, from Black and Outsider's perspective, not knowing what probably was happening behind the scenes, it felt so good.
It felt amazing.
It felt community. I think Shane ate every single one of Uncle Chuck's sandwiches. I think one day he and Dolly ate 8 between the two of them.
Maybe he was getting kickbacks from Cher.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
But like it was so fantastic. So we were so excited, obviously, that you're coming back again this year. Like it's pretty cool to know like the stress behind the scenes. You didn't feel it.
And I didn't even feel it from you, because I saw you walking around, and my thought like was like, this guy's like cool, collected, it's running smooth. Like you weren't showing it. So
No.
yeah,
it was crazy.
yeah,
It was good. But it all came together. Everybody was great. Percy Ellis was incredible.
yeah,
Like, because they were, I mean, basically their whole company was out, like, manning the door.
awesome.
It was bananas. Like, needless to say, it's not going to be like that this year. We have a great team with Jen and Daniel and Davide. I mean, they're all pros. We have an operator, we have a producer, we have a marketing and promotion guy, we have a production manager, and an admin person.
Awesome.
I mean, it's all about, like, our tagline is Forever Local, Forever Canadian. So it's all about the micro and the macro. Right?
Yeah, I love that.
We had originally wanted a micro charity and a macro. So we even went to Red Door, and, like, they couldn't even have people there. Like,
Whoa,
so we're like,
yeah.
okay, well, we can't use you, but like, you got to be there. And then I managed to hook up with Teresa Edwards from Legacy of Hope, who's the CEO and in-house counsel, and she's just an incredible human being.
Yeah.
Firecracker, machine, grandmother. bananas.
Amazing.
So she was like, yeah, let's do it. And they came in from basically Ottawa area and set up their museum, and we were very fortunate that they did come up. And I learned, like, I didn't even know about residential schools until everything that happened.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they ended up being our macro charity because they're a national charity, but
Yeah.
it really made a lot of sense because their values aligned up with ours, and that through education and awareness, we can bring people together, which was critical for all of us at COVID. Right?
Yeah.
'Cause even at the most fundamental cellular level, we're social creatures, and we develop these antibodies and protections against us as a result of being social creatures. So
Yeah.
that, arguably, not that this is way beyond my pay grade, but the isolation is probably not the best thing to actually combat what these issues are. But again, I don't want to get in trouble for saying anything, so
No,
Listen,
totally.
listen,
but
I'll
yeah.
stop it there. But
We're all happy to be back out of our houses. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like this year, like talking about vendors not being able to do it last year, obviously, understandably, they were hit with COVID. They didn't probably have the slush fund. But this year, I feel like there's an appetite. Like we talked to a lot of local shops and stuff like that, and everybody seems to like be chomping at the bit to get back out there and to do festivals. And is that something that you found organizing this year versus last year? Has it been more like people are lining up to do it, or has it still been?
Well, again, as we were discussing before this, often the issues create these great, opportunities.
Yeah.
Like I always use the example of Innocent Gun. Like they were using their beer to condition barrels, and then they started seeing their staff taking the beer home. And
Yeah.
they're like, well, what's going on here? And then they tried the beer, and that was how Innocent Gun came about.
Oh, that's cool.
So I just love.
I didn't know that
story.
either. I like
It's
that.
a great story.
Yeah.
I mean, there's lots of examples of that.
Yeah.
But similarly with us, because we ended up doing a lot of the beverage, we decided to create almost this hybrid between a festival and a hospitality environment. So
Yeah.
this year we have, as we were discussing, like a booze garden with
Yeah.
table service, a VIP tent with like bottle service and table service, and we're running all the beverage. So we fully curated all of our beer lineup. We're doing batch cocktails that we've got the distillers to create.
Awesome.
With like what Canadian influences can they bring into the cocktail?
Yeah.
So and we're gonna, talk about that because again, this is an education thing. Like we are the only Canadian cultural event in Canada, which I can't believe. It's like
That is wild. Yeah. And I think the East End's a
Google
place for it.
Google it.
I trust
Put
it, but like
put
that
in the
is
search engine. I dare you.
Yeah, that is wild. But I love what you said about micro macro,
Yeah.
and like you're right. I never really thought to put it that way, but like having that East End local, and I think the East End's so good because they rally around their own and they really get behind these causes. But part of that is a reflection of like being part of the mosaic of Canada, right? Like it's we're
100%.
tile in the tapestry.
I mean, it's, arguably Canada's the best country to live in, but everybody's sort of peakish about saying that or saying that they're Canadian. I mean, it's the one thing I love about Americans, and they have a ton of bravado about being American, and they probably shouldn't, whereas we should, right?
Right.
So
Totally.
we're going to look at this as an opportunity to try to educate people of what, like, all the food is going to be as much as we can. It's going to get better as we go down this path of creating more of these,
Totally.
but it's as much Canadian influence as possible. Like sushi pizza is Canadian. Canadian. It was actually invented at Nami, just down the road.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, and Unamaki is Canadian. There's a little bit of argument there, but the BC roll is Canadian.
Yeah.
And, Montreal smoked meat sandwiches and poutine and all these things, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we're also going to, talk about those stories at the event. And we also, which is really exciting, we're actually fully partnered with Legacy of Hope. So as far as I know, we're the only festival of this nature that's partnered with a charity.
Wow.
So we're sort of, like I said, their core values very much align up with ours, and one of ours is sort of ethical capitalism. So we're trying to spread the wealth, right? So this year, 100% of all proceeds go to Legacy of Hope.
Amazing.
But next year, what we're going to try to do as we get bigger, because we're hoping to ultimately do it at Woodbine Park, and then put it in each province and territory across the country the same weekend in conjunction with Truth and Reconciliation Day.
Wow.
Amazing.
Every year. So if we do that, even if we do half of that, it's incredible. But if we do that, we'll probably be the biggest festival in the world.
Yeah.
And which would be really interesting to have that as part of the Canadian way.
Yeah.
And,
so no ambitions at all.
Pardon me?
You don't have any ambitions at all. Yeah.
Well, from a business model, we're structuring it, because it's also a business for Foreverfest Inc. Like for us, it's a business. We're in it to make money, but what we want to do is a third of the profits go to Legacy, a third of the profits go to the actual people running the event, and a third to Foreverfest.
Amazing.
So that's something that's pretty unique. There's not a lot of companies doing something like that.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to push for next year when we have the scale to do that. Because it costs a lot to do an event like this. And even at this scale.
Oh, I can imagine. Even just in time and like your energy, everybody, like the team it takes to run it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely imagine that.
Yeah, the learning curve was steep last year. It's just as steep this year.
Yeah.
And then next year we want to go to Woodbine Park where we can jam in like 15,000 people at once. So
incredible.
Amazing. And what does that look
Hopefully we don't shit the bed.
Yeah. That's awesome, man.
That's always the hope, really, for anything.
Yeah. Don't fuck.
We just did helped do a street fest, and I'll tell you, the stress and the collaboration that has to go into the most little thing. It's
and we were a small section of it. Yeah.
We're I just could only imagine the steps involved to doing what you're doing.
Well, I mean, it's almost like this was meant to be, because it's been very serendipitous in its nature. Like even the people that I've met along the way, with we got saved the last year by Matt C. A realtor. Well, his wife used to work at Entertainment, and she referred this guy named Bruno, who was a server, and we would have been totally fucked without him last year. He was a machine.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So he has a staffing company, which we've got to do our staffing this year, but he hooked me up with this guy named Daniel, who does weddings and stuff, but he's been amazing. And then Daniel connected us with Joe, who runs the Portuguese festival in college.
Amazing.
Okay, yeah.
And he's raised us 85 G's as well, and then hooked us up with our AV provider, who's giving us a 50% discount as well.
That's awesome.
And then just before I got here, at another conversation, which I think we've gotten more funds. It's just been, it's just a great cause, and it's all because it's all last minute. This is all bananas. Right?
Yeah.
I'm okay, well, we're doing this, and I don't know how it's going to happen, but somehow it's got to happen, and it's happening.
That's awesome. You're just willing it into existence.
Yeah, we're manifesting.
That's kind of what it is, and it's that's the beauty of the East End though too, right? You put it out there, and then you talk to Matt, and then talks to his wife, and then she has the right people. The thing about the East End is what I love about it is that we're all here to kind of support each other, like a little village. You just talk to someone.
Yeah, so make sure you come by the event.
Exactly.
But actually do.
But okay, let's just put this out there. What day is the event?
So the first day is September 30th, so it's Truth and Reconciliation Day.
Yeah.
So Wolf Sauger is our headliner then, and then the first and the second, Coleman Hell's headlining Saturday, and Trainwreck, which is an amazing 10-piece cover band, is doing Sunday.
Awesome.
Amazing.
Yeah, so...
Yeah, I had such a great time there last year.
Rain or shine, by the way. So there'll be lots of tents and...
Yeah.
How do you get tickets?
Online at foreverfest.ca.
Awesome. We'll link everything in.
We're gonna link everything. I just wanted to kind of put that out there, just so everyone knows before. Sometimes we finish and I'm like, we didn't figure out how to get the tickets or where to go. What the hell? And then so we've talked about the booze situation, which is always the most important part of any festival. Let's just get that out of the way. But then the lubricant. You talked about the acts. How did those come to be this year?
Jen pretty much put that together, our producer.
Cool.
Yeah, so she was actually hooked up through another East Ender, and because I asked her to help, and she's like, it's too big for me. I'm like, it's not gonna be that big, you can do it. And she's like, no, I know. And so then she hooked me up with Jen.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I forgot about that as well.
There we go.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I love it. Like last year, it feels almost like, and maybe because we were there the whole time and like just kind of involved in it from like a very tertiary level, but like it feels like the kickoff to fall to me in the East End now is like the Foreverfest. Like that means like fall's coming, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the time of year, which is super cool.
I'm gonna steal that from you. I didn't even think about that.
It's true though. It really is. Like I remember that's like the first weekend you're like wearing hoodies and plaid and like
It
just,
was like warm
feels,
during the day, and then at night you're like, ooh, this
yeah.
is nice.
And you know we had Dolly there and she was wearing her little thing or whatever, but like it just feels like the kickoff to fall, and it's like such a cool time of year. And the Foreverfest, like becoming part of that in the East End, I think is super special, and like no other neighborhood has that kind of thing. So it's really a cool kickoff. And then so this is what you're doing now. How did you build your skill set? What's your background a little bit for those who don't know, and what kind of like led you to one, the East End, and these are gonna be macro questions, and then two, to Foreverfest. Like how did you develop that toolbox?
Well, I've been in the hospitality industry for 40 years.
So you started when you were
15.
born?
Yeah. Thank you, Jen.
Out of the womb.
And,
I was like, no, don't need to know these specific things. I meant like, yeah.
So, and then writing final exams at U of T, I wanted to be an actor, and a buddy of mine owned this bar called 606. And he basically got suckered into putting in all the financing, which is exactly what he didn't want to do. So he said, my partners at the time were two Arab brothers, and they were like my best friends. And one of them was working for his family.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Do you guys want it?" And we said he'll give it to us on a vendor take back. And then we're like, "Well, shit, like I'm like I can do this. The problem, I've been working in the hospitality my whole life."
I'm sensing a theme here.
Yeah, I know. And so of course we took it over. And I thought, well, I can just own a bar and get drunk and meet girls and go on auditions and not be a starving actor. So
Sounds like a dream.
none of that happened. Well, we fired all the staff, and then nobody came.
Yeah.
So then it was like 110 hour work weeks. And then about 5 years into it, an article came out in the National Post that 606 was the model bar. So 2 weeks later, because I did something, instead of hiring attractive female bartenders, I had all male models from Ford.
Okay.
And I also had a catering company at the film industry called Shoots Catering. So it was sort of like a hidden spot for the actors coming into town. But when that article came out, it was just a shitstorm.
Yeah.
And
awesome.
In a good way.
like 300 people inside, 300 people outside, like sardines inside.
That's amazing.
And then I got bored and opened up a place called O, which was a fine dining supper club. And then that was amazing. Like no promoters, packed every night. And then all of a sudden, streetcar construction happened.
Yep.
And then, so they ripped up both sides on King Street from Spadina to Bathurst. It didn't affect 606 a ton, but Robert Lantos wasn't pulling up in his Bentley to go to O.
Right.
And so that happened, and then SARS, West Nile, blackout, and then
Yeah.
it was over.
Yeah.
Shit.
And so then I licked my wounds and moved to the East End, which I thought I'll never live in the East End because I'm a West End guy.
Okay.
And then so I was figuring out what the hell to do, and there was this location at 696, which was interesting because I had 606 King Street West, and then O was at 609 King Street West.
So it's all kind of coming together.
And it was this weird sixes, right? And Prohibition was at 696 Queen Street East.
Yeah.
So we had originally called it Booze Emporium Gastropub and Oyster Bar, and then the Alcohol and Gaming Commission, in their infinite wisdom, would not let me call it that because they felt it would promote the consumption of alcohol.
Weird.
So again, top story on the news that we can't call it that. So I just stamped Prohibition over it
Awesome.
in silent protest.
Yeah.
But nobody knew where they were. Were they at Booze? Were they at Prohibition? So then I ended up calling it Prohibition Gastropub.
Yeah.
Prohibition Gastro House.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I trademarked that, and so Gastro House we had gastropub like food, but then we had the whole late night aspect. Friday, Saturday night, it would turn into Crazy Nightclub.
Awesome.
It was like the first thing of its kind in the East End. Like obviously, like growing up, I was a beacher, and we'd go to Prohibition. We were like, "This is awesome! I don't have to go downtown.
Yeah.
I don't have to cross the DVP."
Maybe
Yeah,
you
but
say
let's
how
go
old
party.
you were when you were
I'm
going.
no, I was of legal age.
But it was a shit-eating battle there too. Like it took us 5 years to establish ourselves.
Yeah.
I mean, we lost a ton of money for the first 5 years, and then something clicked.
And
then, of
boy, did it
course-
click though! Like it's like in its like prime, it was like
Yeah, it was
ooh.
good.
Yeah,
And then, of course, I got bored and opened up that behemoth at Yonge and Eglinton, Prohibition Gastro House,
yeah,
in the middle of, subway construction hell. There was like a massive, 40-foot hole right in front of my 400-seat restaurant. So, and then, of course, COVID. So the exact same thing happened to me
again.
twice.
Yeah.
In the exact same order.
Wow,
Like,
Like 20 years apart almost, right?
yeah, 15 years.
15 years apart, yeah.
crazy.
And each of my I had 606 for 11 or 12 years. I had and then I had O for about 3 years, and then I had this Prohibition for almost 14 years, and the other Prohibition for almost 3. So
Okay,
it was
so it's like-
exactly the same thing. Because and that's why I was the first sort of restaurateur to get out, because there was no social distancing at Struthers, and if you're not at 150% capacity, you're fucked.
You're done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're done, because before COVID, you're functioning at 5 to 7% net profit and an 80% failure rate after 3 years.
Yeah.
Because any dum-dum can get into the restaurant industry.
Yeah,
Because all you need, like they say, are 4 walls, a bar, and a kitchen.
right.
But they don't realize it's the hardest. And I always say to people, okay, let's say you're serving Grolsch, and because it's a European lager, it's got a 34% of the volume is head. Well, you go into that half of that, you're done. No more profit. You serve an ounce and a quarter instead of an ounce and a half, you're done. No more profit. You serve an 11-ounce steak, and if you cost it a 10-ounce steak, you're done. No more profit.
Wow.
And then on top of that, it's so labor intensive that how do you control that,
Right.
right? And all your costs are going up. Before COVID,
Yeah.
not at the same rate that you can charge your end consumer or your customer
Yeah.
or your guest,
Yeah.
depending on how you want to put it. So it's
They'll
just
choose how long they want to go out. If they want to go out once a week or 3 times a week, like they'll adjust based on how much
well,
it
now with
costs, right?
COVID, with everything going up, it's, as we discussed before, like people's discretionary spending hasn't increased at the rate that all the costs have increased,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
Anything has gone down because of inflation, like everything else, just to get them, out the door for the day costs more money, right? So they're thinking
Well,
less about
but
restaurants.
I mean, it's, Catherine Wynne in her infinite wisdom thought she would like raise minimum wage for waiters, which is a joke, because any of us who's worked as waiters know that we didn't care about our wage.
Yeah.
Because we made all the tips.
Yeah.
But what people don't consider is that before, front of house makes twice as much as back of house and works half as hard.
Yeah.
Now front of house makes 8 times as much as back of house and works half. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
Right.
the political quagmire it creates is a gigantic disaster,
Yeah.
and nobody's and that's just one of the problems that's been created.
Right.
I'm like, why don't you just tax people on their tips? I probably will get hate mail on it.
Let's
why
not
did
put
you do
his
that?
home address.
Yeah.
And we know plenty of salespeople who don't make a wage.
Yeah.
They work, so why don't we do that?
Yeah.
Because if you're good, you can, waiters make more than the bar owners
Oh,
as a
totally.
function of profitability.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you're good, you could make 20, 30, 40% in tip.
Yeah.
But that's another podcast.
That's another
Yeah, yeah,
podcast
yeah.
altogether.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, so before we put the mics on, you were talking about stoicism and walks and like different ideas. Do you want to talk about some of those ideas right now, or do you want to kind of keep this?
Keep those to another podcast.
No. I mean, I worked on a passion project. We're doing a 30-minute, 13-episode, episodic animated horror comedy, loosely based on my life owning 606, where I sold my soul to the devil
Wild.
to make it busy, but I've actually sold my soul of 13 of my patrons. So I've got to try to save them without killing the party. And the God's actually a drunk, delinquent gambler.
I would watch this
and
show. man.
He's
This-
gambled
yeah.
with all the gods, so it's anyways. I'm doing it with much smarter people from Teresa Media and Lakeside Animation, but that's been a ton of fun. Not that anything's going to happen with it, but it's really interesting watching like these characters being drawn and coming to life.
Yeah.
Right.
That's so cool. I was not expecting you to say this.
I was
like, wait, I was like, food, what, like.
Well, I've been working on. I remember I wrote a movie script about 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And it took me a year and like 20 rewrites, and I thought it was awesome. So I gave it to this script doctor from Teresa Media named Aaron Dunn, who's my production partner on this, and he gave me a 25-page breakdown of what a piece of shit it was. And I'm like, okay, we got to be friends now for sure. So we've been drinking the last 15 years, and just before COVID, I'm like, I want to do like a live episodic TV series about 606, like a cross between Melrose Place and Breaking Bad, where the main character, the controlling idea is he provides moments for everybody else, but can never live in the moment, not really realizing those are his moments, right? So I'm like,
Right.
And then Aaron, because he produces and writes animation, he's like, I think we can make this into animation because then we can do a bunch of crazy shit. So that's how all that came about.
Awesome. And then is that like are you kind of making it and then you're going to sell it, or do you guys have someone lined up to distribute it, or like what's the?
Yeah, well, they're trying to pitch it. They pitched it. They've got talks going on with Amazon and Adult Swim and potentially Netflix. So
Nice.
We've developed a deck, and Aaron's wrote the pilot episode, and we have certain things like our sort of, whenever I look at a business, I'm like, what are your uniques? Why are people going to come to it? Like, what separates you from the pack? So ours is that something in every episode is true. There's a celebrity in every episode, and that people can contribute ideas to the episode, and if they do, their avatar can be in the bar crowd.
Okay.
So like your Bitmojis. So
Yeah.
we were trying to find out. We were trying to get a hold of Jacob Blackstock, who invented Bitmoji, to put it in that world.
Cool.
But anyways, we've developed our own, and we're going to try to crowdfund it with using crowdfunding and NFTs. So based on how much money they put in for the pilot episode, they can have like a silent on camera, or they can have a line, or they can have a part. So we're working on that now. So and then they get an NFT of their avatar, which they can, try to make money off of.
Yeah.
Whatever.
That's super.
That's
cool.
exciting.
Awesome.
I'd watch it.
Yeah, so it's one of those things like getting out of often like the worst thing that has ever happened to you becomes the best thing.
Yeah.
And then I've been working on something we discussed for the last 2 years, which is to reimagine how restaurants interact on a fundamental level to create true pure profit centers. Unlike Uber Eats and Skip the Dishes, which fucking steals from restaurants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And tools to interact to improve their margins.
Yeah.
Because we were discussing it earlier. I always like to use this line, and I'm probably going to like rape it because I'm going to use it too much. But if the restaurant industry was a fairy tale, it would be Humpty Dumpty, and it's fallen off and it's broken, and you can't just put it back together. You have to reassemble it into a $6 million man, which probably shows my age, but it's got to be a transformer of some sort, right?
Yeah.
So it's just the business model just doesn't work, because to your point, people's discretionary spending isn't going up at the same rate as how costs are going up. And again, I mean, I think there's really positive impacts to COVID, because maybe it will weed out some of these people in the restaurant, because there's a lot of talented chefs and talented managers, but they're not talented business people.
Yeah, it's a different skill set, right?
It is.
Well, yeah, you got to be a business person, right?
Yeah.
You got to be able to understand your costs, because I can make great food at 50% food costs and 40% labor costs and 50% spirit cost or alcohol costs, like easy peasy. But all you're doing is dragging everybody down the toilet, right?
Yeah.
So it's just a race to the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough. And it's tough with the apps too, like Uber Eats and DoorDash, like you were saying, taking the cuts on it. I was actually reading something about that, like how
It's
that
gross.
whole economy is going to change, because it was basically pitched in like the early 2010s of like, the individualism, and people could kind of set their own hours. But because there was so much venture capital money coming into all these companies, it was fake, right? Like the price you were getting an Uber for wasn't real. It was being subsidized by all these people pushing money into it. Yeah. And now that money's not there anymore, so they actually have to charge you what it costs. The drivers aren't making any money. You're paying up
it's cheaper to get a cab now.
It's cheaper to get a cab. But if the alternative to that would be like some sort of app like that where it's a service, but it's owned by all the users. So say every restaurant gets together, and I don't know exactly how this will work, but they own the platform. They get a piece of it. They can keep costs relatively low on that. They can get their products to the consumers, which obviously there's a demand for.
Yeah, actually, that's a good idea. They could pay their pro rata share of whatever the costs are based on their size. No, I mean, but it's very interesting, because it just shows you how that business model is broken.
Yeah.
So broke.
From the start to the finish, right?
Yeah.
Because restaurateurs are getting totally fucked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the problem was with COVID is there was no choice. Like most restaurateurs are just mom and pop, so they have their house on the line. They have everything on the
Yeah.
line. Like I got smoked,
Yeah.
right? And so they'll do anything just to create cash flow, even if they're losing money.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then they just don't pay their taxes, they don't pay their HST, they don't
Yeah.
pay their income tax, they don't pay their staff. Like all this shit happens just to stay afloat.
Yeah. It's wild. And again, like the demand's there, right? So it is there's this broken, there's this disconnect between people who want the product and then the cost and the reflection of the true cost.
Yeah. But again, that's why the business model really fundamentally has to change.
Yeah. Where do you see it going over the next 5-10 years? 15? What does it need
Out
to
of my
do?
pay grade, but
Yeah.
I mean, my idea is big, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe another podcast.
Yeah.
Another time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome, man. Well, I think we've got a rapid fire for you.
We're gonna close in on a rapid fire
Okay.
as fast as you can. No. Easy questions. East End, ideally. If it's not, you can go throughout anywhere. But you know, it's nice to keep it local.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
if not, then the world. You gotta
Yeah.
wherever.
Okay.
Yeah.
We got Michael,
Yeah.
Foreverfest.
September 30th to October
Second.
Okay.
2nd.
Yeah.
Rapid fire questions. Here we go. Favorite restaurant.
For brunch, White Lily, without question, best in the city.
What's your favorite dish there?
The breakfast.
Okay.
Like, I mean, I was obsessed with Rusty. I tried to make it at my place and could never master it, and they have.
They do so good.
And Goods and Provisions.
Oh, what's
Nice.
your favorite dish there?
The ribeye, when Dean does it.
Nice. Okay. Favorite clothing store?
Good neighbor.
Nice. Favorite gym, place to work out?
Fortis.
And?
Toric for spin. Well, that's spinning, working out. When you say working out, I think you mean mates. I'm sorry, Julie.
Favorite coffee shop?
Tandem.
Ooh, best burger.
Best burger.
Yeah.
Comrade.
Yes. Best pizza.
Descendant.
Nice. Favorite brewery?
In the East End.
Just-
Salter Street.
Nice.
Nice.
The best sneaky spot in
It's
Toronto.
crazy.
It is. It's such a great
Yeah.
location. Favorite bakery? Bakery.
Bunch of brioche. Their cheese croissant.
Oh, it's insane.
Yeah,
I
it's
can't
cool.
even just have one. I have to get
Yeah.
two. It's fucked. Favorite takeout food? Hungover.
Good one. Descendant.
Nice.
Favorite takeout food? Not hungover.
I don't do a lot of takeout. I'd say sushi. The Kiko, is it, or
Oh, no, Kibo.
Kibo?
Nice. And last, your favorite bar?
Goods and Provisions.
Yeah.
Like, it's the most beautiful room in the city.
It is. It
It's
really
like
is.
so perfectly
Yeah.
lit. Their
It's like you're in
cocktails are
Soho
great.
in New York.
It
you
feels
know?
very New York.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. We had just the favorite takeout question, and then Mark Richards was like our first guest on our first season, and he's like, hungover or not hungover? And I was like, that's a really good question
It's an
because
important
it is
distinction.
different.
Yeah, it's definitely different.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Comrade Burger's so good.
Yeah.
We went just recently, like it switched owners, and so I was like, I'm gonna hit the burger, and if it sucks, I'm gonna be really upset because it's my favorite burger.
Yeah. And they stopped doing
But the new owners are good, right? They're from Winona.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
like
they're really
they're
good. Yeah.
and they're like the guy was like, we know we're not changing the
And a
burger.
close runner-up for restaurant Lake Inez.
Like Inez. Great
Yeah,
choice. Yeah.
It's
They're awesome.
so good.
Yeah.
Every time I've gone, it's always been like something completely different than
Yeah.
the last time, and it's so like we have to actually eat there. We've never eaten there.
Yeah.
And my son works at Ascari, and I love Eric and John, so that's the best.
That's
pasta,
so
for
fun.
sure.
It's
Yeah.
the carbonara.
The
Yeah.
carbonara. I ordered two there.
With the peas, not with the squash, though.
Yes,
would say
I
no
agree.
Yeah.
squash, just the peas.
I actually don't mind the squash. I don't mind the squash, but the peas is like number
Yeah,
one for
killer.
sure. Yeah.
It's critical.
Yeah, amazing, awesome. Well, Michael Summerfield,
Thank
Foreverfest, September 30th, October 2nd, Maple Leaf Forever Park. We'll see you all there. Thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Appreciate it.
you.
Cool.